Hello, everyone, and welcome to Progress with Portia, where we have real conversations to progress individuals and communities. Part of the purpose or passion in my heart of starting Progress with Portia deals a lot with advocacy. And so today I have my friend with me, Frankie Robertson, who's going to share with us about her advocacy group. And so thank you so much, Frankie, for joining us today.
Thank you, Portia. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so honored to be your guest.
Yes. So again, I'm really excited to kind of learn about more about what it is that you do. You share with me all the time, of course, but to share with everyone else what it is that that the Amandla Group, what kind of services you provide. But just a little bit, just to say, Miss Frank and I met our children. We're going to the same daycare, and my life was a little frazzled at the time, and we connected, and I'm so thankful for the connection. At the time, I had no idea that we had so much in common as far as the passions, our heart for advocacy. She's a little further, not a little, probably a lot of further along than I am as far as being actively involved in advocacy. And so she is, to me, what I would consider a mentor, of someone that I look up to, just seeing the work that she's doing. And I would like to get more involved. Of course, I support a lot of advocacy work, but I haven't found my exact role and my exact lane. And so I have, just enjoyed the time that we've had together, to allow our kids to kind of grow up together, to see their relationship. Our sons look like brothers.
They do. They really do.
But it's just this we have two kids around the same age, and so it's been a sweet connection. I've really appreciated your friendship, but also being able to learn about the impact and the work that you do in the community. So can you share a little bit with us or with everyone about what it is that you do?
Absolutely. And let me just say, ditto to everything you said. Sum it up, much love. This has been a blessing to me and my family, having the opportunity to meet you. Actually, had some interactions on social media where I would see some of your advocacy in action. And I was like, well, I'd love to meet Portia Henderson. And when I saw that you were in my class, our kids' class, I was like, that's Portia Henderson. So I appreciate it. I know. I was just like, wow, I would see you in circles with some of the activist friends I have, and following, commenting on some of the same issues. And I was like, she seems like good people, and I certainly appreciate your passion. I know I've never told you that, but we've never gotten into that before, but admire all that you do, and certainly excited about Progress with Portia, and love your kids, and they are family. And yeah, they do look like brothers. And, Zoe says Hannah's her best friend too now. So super excited. Love to see them get together. And of course, always love catching up with you too. Yes. So the Amandla Group. The Amandla Group is a social justice consulting firm focused on addressing the social and political determinants of health that impact Black and Brown birthing people. So I offer a myriad of services, one being advocacy services, two being actual lobbying services, project management services, and educational services and outreach services. So examples of the educational and outreach would be through my campaign for the Department of Children and Family Services and Pew Charitable Trust called Black Mama Joy. It's a direct outreach to Black and Brown birthing people about maternal, overall good maternal health, reducing and minimizing threats to our overall health, advocating through systemic barriers and racist systems and structures, but then also providing direct lobbying services to clients like the March of Dimes, and then providing policy consulting services to National Birth Equity Collaborative, and also project management services to organizations like Metromorphosis and the Power Coalition, to name a few.
To give you a hand clap. Amazing work. And I just love to hear all that it is that you're doing. And I don't know if you ever really just take the time to just take it all in, all the work that, the services that you're actually providing the community. And so thank you for the way that you service the community. And again, the hard work, the passion, it's in your heart. I know it just flows through you. So it's not something that you're just doing, but this is something that is part of who you are. And so it's
That means
been,
so much.
yes, and it's just been amazing to watch, like I said, to watch you. And so can you tell us a little bit about what it was that had made you start your company?
Yeah, so I've worked in maternal child health for a little over 12 years. My origins in actual maternal child health started with the March of Dimes, but my passion for community service has pretty much always been there, starting with my origins probably in 4-H, which I won't take you way back there, but literally in like high school, volunteering, and loving kids, working with kids and stuff like that. But as far as like community service, a lot of community service in college. After college, worked in retail management and planned to go back to school, but then found myself volunteering a lot for like grassroots community movements, and just really passionate about the community, passionate about equity, passionate about equality, and wanting all communities to thrive. I found myself doing a lot of volunteer work and really realizing that that was my calling and my passion, and that my 9-to-5 that I was working in business administration wasn't it, because I would go to work, enjoy working around my coworkers, but my mind was always going to volunteer at a community center or learning more at, fundraising, webinar, well, not webinars, fundraising workshops, not webinar, and things like that. And just really my heart being in the community and wanting to make a change.
Yeah.
And as I started to reevaluate my career, I started thinking of what do I want to do? And I want to enact change in the community. So it was just a question on how I would do that. And I started learning more about policy making. I was doing a lot of volunteering for political campaigns. Honestly, wanted to be a political strategist, learn to do campaigns and, things like that. And even wanted to be an elected official at one point. And I just had to figure it all out. So what I learned was that I definitely wanted to do the hands-on community work, but I realized the power of policy making. So an opportunity presented itself to work for the Louisiana State Senate. So I worked there and I served as a legislative assistant for Senator Cleo Fields. And this was in his first round in the Louisiana legislature, and worked there. And then, of course, still love volunteering, still love working with youth. An opportunity presented itself to work with Louisiana Leadership Institute. So I worked there as executive director for a few years and managed several major projects there. And decided that I wanted to learn a little bit more about research, and looking at community programs overall. So from there, an opportunity presented itself to work at Southern University in the Center for Social Research and work with one of my amazing mentors, Dr. Alma Thornton, where I learned to write grants and learned to do community impact, community assessment, write programs. And many of them were designed to address systemic poverty issues, right? So I would, be afforded a lot of, latitude with her to kind of figure things out and problem solve and think about what types of grants would be good for the communities that they were serving, and had an opportunity to do that. So in all of those things, I had a taste of a little bit of a lot of things. Then years later, an opportunity presented itself to work for March of Dimes, where I could actually utilize all of this, the grants, the public policy interests, the legislative interest, the fundraising interest, the health interest. And I was hired as the state director, and I was in that position for about 7 years, and then was promoted to regional director of advocacy and governmental affairs, which basically allowed me to give away the fundraising piece and work more on the policy piece, which was always a passion. So it kind of took me full circle, So I worked there and for about 5 years, had a multi-state territory, and including the southeastern United States multi-state territory, and then the territory of Puerto Rico. And I worked there advancing, policies, working with contract lobbyists, team members, volunteer committees on issues that directly impacted maternal child health. So last year, I took a leap of faith and decided that I wanted to start my own firm. It was time for a change. There were some reorganizations that were happening with the organization, and it had been a really rocky few years for me personally, meaning that my daughter Zoe, my husband and I went through a very challenging pregnancy with her that was, high risk, unexpected, not at all like Levi's birth. And it was a game changer for me. It opened my eyes to a lot of things that the families that I was helping to serve through March of Dimes, whether it was like in the NICU or families who wanted to tell their story as a part of our fundraising efforts, or families who we were telling stories for as we were working with entities like the Department of Health to advocate for various policies, or, with physicians. And I realized that there were some things that I didn't realize. Either I glossed over it like people did with me when I was in the situation, either I wasn't listening closely enough, or people weren't comfortable in telling that ugly side of the story, which was the mental health side, the extreme postpartum anxiety after suffering from birth trauma, the anxiety that goes along with having a higher risk birth, and the fact that mental health resources are not readily accessible to all people, and that some people literally have to just try to day-to-day live through it, which could be just a downward spiral if you don't get the kind of care that you need. And it just really made me passionate about finding it within myself to put my fears aside, my shame, the stigma that I, had, just like anyone else with issues of depression and anxiety and things like that, and say, hey, no, this is hard. I don't know what people are going to think of me. I don't know what people are going to think about me in terms of my capacity as a mom, my capacity as a partner. But somebody needs to talk about this, because it's pretty commonplace. And if we don't talk about it and we keep othering people, then we won't ever get anywhere. And there's a lot of people suffering in silence. And I decided to talk about it. So, I thought one of the best things for me to do was, through my own business, be able to tell the story the way that I wanted to tell it, and be able to speak on behalf of and alongside other Black women and Black birthing people who experienced preterm birth or birth trauma, NICU stays, mental health issues, mental health, just wanted to promote wellness, and wanted to be able to do that in my own way. So starting my own company gave me that ability to be able to do that. And then thankfully still retain a relationship with March of Dimes by taking them on as my first and only client at the time. So that's pretty much, how this all evolved for me.
That's awesome. And, I really love the part where you talk about, adding the vulnerability and sharing your own story along with that, especially when it comes to things like mental health. Because many times when we talk about advocacy for mental health, when we talk about, when we share about it, we know that, and I've said this before, that, people have gotten to a place where we hear mental health, and hearing that is more acceptable. The term mental health, yeah, we acknowledge it. We honor, we respect that, people have mental health. We respect those, and we want people to get the help. But it's another step that I think we have to take in really understanding and recognizing signs and symptoms, because oftentimes many people who are recognizing it and saying that they understand it matters for other people are experiencing signs and symptoms themselves, but they don't even know it. Or their friends and family members around them who are experiencing it and they don't know it. They're not identifying it, or they don't know how to properly support them, let alone advocate for them, and to ensure that they're getting treated properly. And so, the fact that you've taken on this, and you have this passion, but alongside of that, you're also willing to be vulnerable and share, the fact, that, and I've shared the same thoughts as you, that, and anyone else, like you said, because of the shame, the stigma of sharing. And it's, and I've shared that I have anxiety, that I take anxiety medication. And it is something that has taken me as a licensed clinical social worker, as a professional, as someone who knows, and who supports it, that it still can be difficult and challenging to be able to, because I know the lack of understanding, the lack of knowledge that some people have about it. So while I was
Mhm.
comfortable with it, I have to then become comfortable with the idea of sharing it, knowing that I
Yeah.
may receive responses from people who are not yet fully aware of what it really is and how it truly impacts people, and that they too may actually have it. And so, but I have grown confident along the journey. But I think that's a huge part of the advocacy piece, that is really
Mhm.
being able to acknowledge and have the freedom and liberty to be able to share
Mhm.
your own story. Because many times jobs or positions or certain things may limit how much of ourselves, and of course I'm
Right.
sure it's not the primary thing that you focus on, but being able to add that, I think it just adds a different element, and it adds something, I'm sure, to the women who you service, or the families, the men and women whom you all service, to be able to hear that story.
Absolutely. And I agree. And, I could share, a lot of stories. There's been families who have shared and confided. There's observations that I've made, but I don't have the right to own other people's story. But if I know that I have one of my own, I can share that. I
Mm.
can share my story. And
Mhm.
if they would like to share and provide to help someone else, or to, if that's a part of the healing process or acknowledging that for oneself, then do that. But everyone has to do what's right for them. So the best way that I know is to share what happened to me, share my own story, and share how that impacted me. And I've had so much support from people who said, you know what, I'm so happy that you share that. The same thing happened to me. I experienced the same thing because I remember when I was sitting in the NICU when I had our daughter Zoe, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, like I worked for March of Dimes for 12 years, and I've talked to so many parents, I've talked to so many people about their stories. I mean, I held their hand while they cried. They've talked about just how scary things were. I've sat in green rooms with them. I've helped produce stories with filmmakers at their home. And I was like, well, God, like, why am I here? Like, I'm doing everything that, I think I need to do to uplift this issue. So there's got to be a reason why I'm here. And I'm starting to tear up, and I hadn't done that in a while. But I was just thinking, well, I kept saying, why am I here? Like, what is it that you want me to do? Why am I here in this moment? And I started thinking about one of the issues that I felt just so impacted by was the fact that the anxiety of being in that moment was just so overwhelming, and not necessarily like in the NICU, but but like once people think, okay, well, you're home from the NICU, everything's fine, thankfully, your child survived and you're able to do this. But it's like once you make it through that traumatic piece where you're just like on overdrive, then when you get home, you have a moment where you're like, whew, what just happened? And then that's when the emotions really start to bubble up. And it's different for everybody, because we were very fortunate that with our daughter, she was critical for some moments, but we knew that she was healthy. So it was a matter of her learning to suck, swallow, breathe, and then be able to take her bottle and then go through the various I forgot what you call them, but the various sequences, I guess, to be able to, feed properly and not have a breathing episode or bradycardia or something like that. And she could go home. She didn't have any chronic health issues, no long-term health issues. She wasn't requiring any type of surgery. And it was just a matter of us kind of waiting it out once we saw that, she made it past some very, testy moments. There's just a not knowing piece and the being so vulnerable, especially with my personality. I like to know and I like to be in control. But this particular instance, you were told, you realize you were not in control. For us, God was in control, and just being obedient and patient and waiting and being faithful and prayerful, no matter what amount of faith we thought we were going into there with, is a test. So that was just a lot. And then just kind of breathe through that and get home. And people are like, oh, you're home and your baby's fine. And then it's like, but no, everything's not fine. Like, you can't sleep at night because you're wanting to make sure that the baby's fine. You've gone from 100% medical care around the clock to here's your fragile baby, let's go home. And there's no monitors. They're still super fragile. They're immunocompromised. And then you've got to go to doctor's appointments with the rest of the world. It's just a lot to take in. And it's a lot for parents to just internalize and not um, verbalize that, because there can be long-term impacts, especially if you don't have the type of treatment, and then society expects you to just bounce back and get back to work, get back to life, get back to, assimilating in regular culture and all that. And there are some adjustments. So, I vowed to talk about that and share how that impacted us. Some people it didn't impact them at all, and that's great. But for a lot of people, I think research showed about upwards of 60% of families in the NICU deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was a lot. It wasn't just a lot on me or my husband. It was a lot on our son, having his parents gone. And that hurt, being gone at such a vulnerable time in his life, being 2. And, even down, he had a growth spurt while I was gone. I could hold him one way. And then when we got home, like formally 2 months later, he would try to snuggle with me actually in this chair. And I was like, he couldn't get comfortable. I'm like, oh my God, what happened? You grew. So it's just, it can be a lot to take in, so I definitely want other parents to feel like they can talk about it, but I want them to be able to find a way to let their loved ones, their supports, their family members know how they're feeling, and provide avenues for them to have resources to say, hey, this is kind of my story, or this is what happens, this is how I'm feeling, so that families who were truly trying to help, like my own, they were truly trying to help, and they did, but they didn't really know like how to help, and that can get a little testy sometimes.
Well, and I actually had 2 friends, or 2 people I know, one who had NICU babies. I'm sure more than that, but 2 remember their stories. But I know one lady, she posted, and she said that who she was prior to having that experience had died, and she was looking forward to knowing herself moving forward, like learning who she is now moving forward, because it made such an impact on her, and how whether it was the stress or overwhelming or exactly what, I didn't get to have that particular conversation, but it was just really powerful, that statement that she made. And then they both, her and my other friend, they both had another child, that they had, that was an older child, of course, that they were at home. And so I think, I don't know if there's ways that, I think sometimes the medical system, sometimes, it makes it challenging for family systems. And sometimes I just wonder if there are ways to incorporate or make it easier for families to be a family during some very critical times in their life. And then when you were talking about going home, I almost wonder if a model similar to home health would be appropriate once they're discharged, where they could have a nurse come in, because you don't need the level of care to be in the hospital, but it doesn't have to be actual home health. Like it could be a midwife, or be, and a lactation consultant, have a team of people who actually go into the home and provide home similar to home health services, that, okay, step down from the hospital, but this way we can transition. You have social workers available if necessary. Again, everybody's, like you said, needs may be different. It could reduce the cost from keeping them in the hospital, but then allow to have the supports needed in home to help them to transition properly, and to comfort, and to deal with the stresses, as well as, maybe help them to identify some of the signs and symptoms. Because one of the things with mental health that I think is really important for people to realize is that just like when your vision slowly kind of goes away and you don't realize until you get glasses that, hey, things have been blurry, it's the same with mental health, that it may not be an automatic switch that's so different that you clearly know that there has been a change, but it's like a subtle shift in how you're feeling, how you're doing it. You may feel anxious and overwhelmed, but in your mind, you may rationalize that moment, because, well, this is what I have going on, and it'll just go away, and not understanding the impact or the detriment that it's having to you, family, friends, your child, or whatever. And so having someone to be around to assess those things, and in-home assessments are always better. because you're able to see the person in their natural environment. They're more comfortable. You're able to
Mhm.
see, like when I did hospice work, I can go into someone's home, I can see like if there's clutter everywhere, so they haven't cleaned in like 2 or 3 years, like they may be dealing with depression. They may be overwhelmed. They may, that there's something going on here that I would have never known by just seeing their outward appearance. But going into the home helps you to identify and see what kind of support or resources this person may actually truly need.
So true. Yep.
So, and I know, and you just shared so much with us already. Hold on one second. I apologize. So, who should seek, and you kind of touched on this already, but who should seek out your services and who would benefit from your services?
So because I have like multiple avenues of service options, rather, one of the things I didn't mention is that I'm trained as a doula. So I do some of my community education that I do. It's technically it's doulas provide those services like childbirth education classes, community education classes. So I really have my training and my skill set as a doula for that. But one of the things that I didn't mention is, and I'll be sharing this later when I actually do my public launch, but through my doula services, I actually just formed a new company that I will be channeling a doula services through. So one, seeking my services as a doula, as a birth coach, someone to help birthing people along through their pregnancies. And in the postpartum period, like you just mentioned, I certainly very excited about helping all families, but I definitely have a special interest in helping Black and Brown birthing families because of the high risk nature of some of our pregnancies and the systemic racism and issues that we face in the healthcare system, right? Helping us navigate those systems. But then, Black women over 35, is a very high risk group. And I had my first pregnancy at 38, my second one, I think, at 41. And I want to be able to share the information that I have. And with the knowledge that I have from my own experience, coupled with my trainings and my background in maternal health, that is a service that I offer. And so I'll be launching that publicly in the next month or so. But that is a service. I want to mention that through the Amandla Group. Like I mentioned, lobbying services, project management services. If there's a nonprofit or a for-profit that needs some help with particular project management opportunity related to health equity, social justice, just equity overall, I've been very fortunate to work with organizations on those types of things. If there's questions or consult someone needs about their organization in terms of, is it equitable? Are they creating equitable spaces, for their employees? I've actually recently working with a client on a project of that nature. That's really exciting for me. Also, as you mentioned, the advocacy piece is big. So as a lobbyist, I work with state and local governments to help advance policies that impact maternal and child health. So if there's a nonprofit organization or a for-profit organization that wants to positively impact Black and Brown birthing people's lives, then they can contact me and I'm happy to represent them at the Capitol. Or if it's not direct lobbying services and just some assistance with policymaking, maybe training staff or supporting staff who is in that role, I'm able to do that as well.
Awesome. So you are just a wealth of knowledge and resources
Thank you so much.
to the community. And so, again, I definitely want to encourage anyone who is in need of any of those services to reach out and to connect. How can they connect with you on social media or online, or what's ways they can reach out to you?
Sure, a few ways. So I'll start with my email. It's Frankie@theamandlagroup.com. And on social media, on Instagram, it's _Amandla_group. Facebook at the Amandla Group LA. And on Twitter, at Frankie BR LA. So any of those avenues, it's fine to DM me. I'll reach out, but email is fine as well. And I'll be happy to connect. I can come in and meet with an organization, assess your needs, see how my services can help further your goals, especially in the health equity space or community education space. And just really wanting to work to make sure that there's policies that are equitable, that directly impact our community. So that is a passion, it always has been. And I'm just so fortunate to be able to have this platform through my agency to offer that.
Yes, and you kind of spoke on this already, but if there's anything else you want to say, but you can add to it. If not, you can just tell me there's nothing else you want to add. But where did your passion come from this, and what's your why?
Yeah, so my passion for maternal child health came from many experiences of loved ones in my family and friends. And then recently,